Hi friends, welcome to the Human Thrive podcast. So I'm your host, Amanda, a coaching consultant and founder of Neurodivergent Thrive Coaching. So if you're craving clarity, growth and emotional freedom, this space is for you. All welcome neurotypicals, neurodivergents and anyone not sure where they land just yet. Subscribe now and let's start thriving together. So today's podcast is called The Ego versus the Higher Self. Who is really driving? So who's really running the show? So we're going to unpack how your ego shows up, how it tries to keep you safe but small, and how to lovingly shift into the power of your higher self. So I'll be sharing a real world story to help you feel this transformation in action. So let's get straight in. So what is the ego? You probably heard this word when you think it's like somebody's like maybe full of themselves or praising themselves too much or just full of their own self-importance. And you would say they've got a big ego. But let's look at the real kind of meaning behind it. So Sigmund Freud, obviously most people who know who that is, he described the ego as the mediator between our instinctual drives, also known as the id, and our moral compass, which is the superego. So the ego is like the mediator between these two, and it tries to help us survive in the world, balancing between the two forces. So here's the twist. Our ego is obsessed with safety. It's like a well-meaning but overprotective parent, and it tells you to stay quiet, play small, don't risk being seen, or don't risk failing. It wants certainty. So like a parent who doesn't want you going and climbing, doesn't want you playing rugby, doesn't want you doing these things because it sees them as, a risk to your safety, and it doesn't want you taking them risks. But as yourself, sometimes you want to do things that maybe have an element of danger or maybe an element of risk because you want to live and you don't want to be this risk-averse person. So, but the ego is obsessed with safety. It is like a well-meaning parent or just any kind of protector, and it wants that certainty to keep you safe. It doesn't want you expanding beyond your comfort zone. But how does this ego hold us back in life? So our ego kind of hides behind things like imposter syndrome. So I always have imposter syndrome, but I realize it's my ego. It's trying to keep me safe, and it's telling me that I'm a fraud and who am I to go and do this? And it's trying to keep me small. Comparison is another way ego shows up. Comparing yourself to other people, not feeling good enough. Perfectionism, holding you back because you're afraid to take action unless it's really perfect. Control and judgment, so it has to be this way, or it's not working out, or wanting to have this control over everything. So what is the ego? Really, the truth is you're not meant to live under the ego's ceiling. We're built to rise above it. And the ego is holding us back, and it separates us from others and from our own power. So we're going to talk about a few myths of the ego. So myth one, that the ego is bad. You hear ego and you kind of see it as it's not a good thing to have ego, but we all have ego. And the truth is your ego is scared. It's trying to keep you safe, and it's scared to go outside its comfort zone. The ego is it has a very fixed mindset of just keeping you safe and not letting you out, but you want to have a growth mindset. So the ego is holding you back. So the ego needs to be led by something wiser, which is our higher self, which we're going to talk about in a wee second. So myth two about our misconceptions about the ego is reach this enlightenment or work with our higher self means to kill the ego or get rid of the ego. The truth is, we're not going to do that. We're going to integrate it in with our higher self. It's still there to protect us. We don't want to get rid of it. A bit like when we get anxiety and we know that the brain's trying to keep us safe, and we don't want to get rid of anxiety because then we would just do things and wouldn't think about it and put ourselves in lots of dangerous situations. So we need anxiety just like we need the ego to keep us safe and to keep, otherwise we might make we might take actions that are against our morals because we don't have that ego protecting us and keeping us safe. So we do not want to get rid of it totally. We just want to be the masters of it. So myth 3 is that confidence equals ego. The truth is that ego is protecting us. It's superiority. It's confidence is inner peace. Its confidence is inner peace. It's not, you can have an overinflated ego, and you have some people might be, they'll come across one way, but really it's a defense, and when you really break it down, the ego is still keeping them safe. It comes out in a way that people think is they're full of themselves, but usually you find people like that they're hiding behind that ego. So that ego, in a way, when you look at it, is keeping them safe from judgment. And when you break it down, it's fascinating. That is fascinating to me, that people ego, it can be really overinflated, but it can be a defense mechanism, and for their own, almost hiding their own, I don't want to say weaknesses, but you know what I mean. The weaknesses, they're hiding their insecurities. That was the word I was looking. So then I mentioned the higher self. What is the higher self? So our higher self is calm and it's loving. It doesn't perform. It doesn't compare yourself to others. It's patient, it's grounded in your worth, and it doesn't need attention. You don't need to prove yourself when it's your higher self. And if you've ever experienced jealousy, or someone, or being envious of somebody, when you break it down and you really think about it, and I've done this a lot with people I've felt envious of, and I've realized I felt envious because they have a certain maybe strength that I would like and I see lacking in myself. So it's highlighting my insecurities or my weaknesses, and it made me envious of them. But when I really explored it, it wasn't that I didn't have any issues with them personally. It was highlighting my weakness. So my higher self can acknowledge that. My higher self can work with that. My ego was making me jealous. It made me jealous. And I had to question, what is this person bringing up these feelings in me? But the higher self wouldn't be judging or comparing. It would be, that's okay. You've other strengths, or you can build on this strength. And it's not, the ego is what is keeping you almost feeling them jealousy and all. And really, we don't feel like that when we're in with our higher self, where we don't feel like that. Like we don't feel that envious and that jealousy. Their ego is there, and we're not getting rid of it. It's there. So like our anxiety, it's keeping us safe. But let me tell you a story that kind of help you understand this. So I was going to deliver this presentation, and I was about to go into the room. I could feel my palms were damp. They were near enough wet with the anxiety sweat, and my heart felt like it was going to jump out of my chest. And, in the voice in my head was not a kind, soul-centered, higher self voice. It was my ego talking, and it was saying, you're going to mess this up. Who do you think you are? You're going to fall apart. Everyone's going to laugh at you. Everyone's going to be judging you. This is going to go really badly. This voice was telling me all that. That was not my higher self. That was my ego. And a bit like anxiety, it was trying to keep me safe. It was almost putting me into the fight or flight mode, and fight, flight, or freeze. And I wanted to flight. I wanted to run away. But I didn't. So I stepped inside the room, and something shifted. Yeah, and I felt this tug of like wanting to run away, but also wanting to go into the room and deliver the presentation. So it's like my higher self and my ego were in conflict. My ego wanted to keep me safe. It wanted to keep me small, but also because it's an overprotective parent. It was like if your parent was there, or your caregiver, and could see how anxious you were, they're just, oh, come on, it's okay, you don't have to do it. But my higher self was like, you can do this. You're prepared. There was a reason you've chosen to do this, and I'm going to support you. So my higher self was trying to ground me. I was able to use some tapping emotional freedom techniques on myself, just on my hands. So it wasn't on my face, my tapping, or my head. Because at this point, some people could see me from outside the room. Then I did power pose. So just stood up and power pose, like hand on the hips, and started to get in top of my breathing. And then I could feel my palms start to dry. My mouth had been dry and I could feel a little bit of saliva coming back. So went into the room and was able to deliver the presentation. So that was a conflict that is also the anxiety response, but also my ego was saying, who are you to be doing this? You're such a fraud. You can't be doing this. No one's going to listen to you. No one's going to take you seriously. Why are you even doing this? This is not. And my higher self was, you've got this. You're prepared. You can do this. So we can see how our ego and our higher self are constantly controlling us, and they have been programmed since we were children. But we can master the ego. So the same way we can master that anxiety. So in that moment, I was witnessing this. So I was like, okay, ego, this fear of rejection, I see you. Thank you for trying to protect me. But I'm going to take this risk. I'm going to take this chance. I'm going to do it. And even if people did reject me, or people were laughing at me, or people were, who does she think she is? Is that any of my business? No, that's their business. And very likely it's reflecting something in them. So that's their business. But most people, and I suppose if you look at the kindness of most people, want you to do well. You know, you're in front of them, and people, when you get awkward, they get awkward, and they want you to do well. So my higher self allowed me to overcome that moment of panic and to go in and deliver the presentation. So ask your higher self. So your higher self, like, you know, I knew I could do it. It supported me. And the soul-led action was to go and do the presentation and do the thing that the ego was telling me that I couldn't. So I've got a wee challenge for you. So if you're so you can tell I'm a fan of writing letters to things. So write a letter to your ego and thank it, appreciate it, and let it know that your higher self is leading the show now. And that's it. And take one bold action this week that your ego would have stopped you doing. So say yes to something that you were holding back on or feeling not good enough for. Hit publish. Ask the question, take the step, and let your soul lead. You can do this, and as you get more in control, it will realize and listen to you. It was a bit like a kid when you set the boundaries. So my little boy was playing me this morning, giving me those big puppy dog eyes, and was like pulling the blanket over and not wanting to go to school. But I had to show him I was the boss, and he had to go to school and get his uniform on. And yes, he was playing me. So think of the ego like that, or think of it like an overprotective parent but it's not going to let you outside your comfort zone. But you want to grow, and you want to get outside your comfort zone. The higher self is your higher self, or also like your coach. Your coach would be like, as a coach, I want to enable you to reach your higher self, enable you to reach your goals. So your coach is your higher self, and your own inner coach is your higher self. It wants you to do well. It doesn't want you to just to settle for what you're at. It wants you to reach your full potential. And your potential, everyone's potential is so much more than they will ever know or they'll be able to achieve. And remember, your ego isn't your enemy. It's a guide. Your higher self knows the way, so let it speak and let it lead, and keep showing up for the life that your soul signed up for. Until next time, keep rising, keep listening inward, and above all else, keep thriving. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please take a screenshot and save it, share it, and I will comment on everybody who shares it. And thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate you all, every single one of you listening. Thank you so much.